Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om 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 Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanang Namaskrutya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayet Nashtaprayeshva Padreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Nekshtahi. We're continuing with Prahlad's prayers in Canto 7, Chapter 9. We're on verse 25. Kutra Shruti Sukha Mrugatrushni Rupa Khairang Kalevaramasesha Rujang Viroha Nirvidyatena Tujano Yadapiti Vidvan Kamanalam Matulavai Shamayan Durapai. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In this material world, every living entity desires some future happiness, which is exactly like a mirage in the desert. Where is water in the desert? Or in other words, where is happiness in this material world? As for this body, what is its value? It is merely a source of various diseases. The so-called philosophers, scientists, and politicians know this very well, but nonetheless, they aspire for temporary happiness. Happiness is very difficult to obtain, but because they are unable to control their senses, they run after the so-called happiness of the material world and never come to the right conclusion. Srila Prabhupada's extremely sobering purport. There is a song in the Bengali language which states, quote, I constructed this home for happiness, but unfortunately there was a fire and everything has now been burnt to ashes. This illustrates the nature of material happiness. Everyone knows it. But nonetheless, one plans to hear or think something very pleasing. Unfortunately, all of one's plans are annihilated in due course of time. There were many politicians who planned empires, supremacy, and control of the world, but in due time, all their plans and empires, and even the politicians themselves, were vanquished. Everyone should take lessons from Prahlad Maharaj about how we are engaged in so-called temporary happiness through bodily exercises for sense enjoyment. All of us repeatedly make plans which are all repeatedly frustrated. Therefore, one should stop such plan-making. As one cannot stop a blazing fire by constantly pouring ghee upon it, one cannot satisfy oneself by increasing plans for sense enjoyment. The blazing fire is Bhavamahadavagni, the forest fire of material existence. This forest fire occurs automatically without endeavor. We want to be happy in the material world, but this will never be possible. We shall simply increase the blazing fire of desires. Our desires cannot be satisfied by illusory thoughts and plans. Rather, we have to follow the instructions of Lord Krishna. Sarvatarman pratyajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Then we shall be happy. Otherwise, in the name of happiness, we shall continue to suffer miserable conditions. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatane Vanchakalpatarukshascha Kripa Santubheva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So Prahlad has been speaking about his indifference towards the material paradigm based on the example of his father, who tried harder than anybody, got closer to success, and ultimately still failed in the endeavor to really just somehow extract some pleasure from the material world. And he uses a beautiful analogy here. Just like it's very difficult to it's impossible to actually satisfy a fire. It's not actually possible to satisfy it just by feeding it, right? That's the idea that we have, that we operate under by default, is that, uh, okay, so I have this hunger, so if I get the thing that I'm hungry for, then the hunger will go away. And perhaps temporarily, perhaps it does, perhaps not, but at best it's temporary. And so it's likened to a fire, because you can take a little fire and have a little small little fire. It doesn't have to be big, just a small one, contain it. And how much can it burn? It can burn the whole universe. It can burn every piece of wood you'll ever find. You can grow forests and forests and forests. You'll eat all of them. In fact, in some spiritual traditions like Zoroastrianism, because they revere fire as a manifestation of the divine, they actually have these fires that have been burning for literally thousands of years.
Yeah.
And somebody's job is there to make sure it never goes out, because that's their service to the divine. Is like, this is our little deity. We recognize that this is like a representation of the divine. So they have these little eternal fires, and you want to go and see them. They're like behind glass. They're like, you can't go and you can't accidentally blow it out or something. It's been going for 2,000 years or something. It's going to keep going.
Didn't we see one in Mayapur?
Maybe. I don't
It
remember
was
that.
pointed out to us.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of fire. And that's the nature of material desires. They don't actually go away. You can pour ghee on the fire and it doesn't go away. Ghee is a kind of fat. It's like butter, right? So you're pouring oil on fire, butter on fire, what's going to happen? The fire's like more, right? And so it's not quite that simple, because you have to have some gratification for the senses. Otherwise, the body will just fall apart. You can't stop eating and breathing and drinking and everything. But the point is that there's a basic and very fundamental misunderstanding that we operate under by default. And Prahlad is pointing it out. The misunderstanding is that this will make me happy. I actually am these desires. I so identify with my material situation that I am these urges, whether they're very gross or very subtle. Very gross means like you can't take like a dog who's untrained into a grocery store, because they'll just start eating everything. Because why would they not do that? Because they see food, they eat food. That's very gross, right? A little more polished individual, they don't do that. They have like more polished desires. Like they want to enjoy the beauty of, I don't know, a well-composed poetical sonnet or something or other. They have some other kind of material desire that's more polished and more refined. But one way or another, we identify with those desires. Like, I am this. This is where I get my happiness. This is who I am. I'm the person who fulfills these desires, and that's my purpose. And we can't come to a point of no desires. In fact, the most difficult thing you can ever offer to anybody is a prospect of a life without having a desire fulfilled. Because we're made for it. We're actually made to have will. We're made to actually be attracted to things. The problem isn't that we're, possessing of desire. That's not fundamentally the problem. The problem is that we're looking for the satisfaction the wrong way. Prabhupada points out in the purport, he says, how did he put it? He puts it in a nice way. Our desires cannot be satisfied by illusory thoughts and plans. Rather, we have to follow the instructions of Krishna. Otherwise, in the name of happiness, we shall continue to suffer miserable conditions. In the name of happiness, right? That's the fire. That's our engine. It's motivating us, right? It's pushing us always. We're always looking for satisfaction. And some philosophical systems conclude that, well, this is the problem. We should stop looking for satisfaction. Just exist, right? And that denies a fundamental attribute of the self that exists even in spiritual perfection, which is relationship, which is will, relationship, variety, exchange. All those things are annihilated if you just try to exist in some kind of because that's like, I'm in the negative numbers, let me just go to zero. That will be relief. Well, temporarily it is relief. If I'm, outside and it's scorching hot right now. France is going through a heat wave. It's like 114 Fahrenheit there. That's like 45 Celsius for our Canadian friends, or French, I suppose. We use Celsius too. And it's miserable. If you're out in that and it's killing you, and it's been killing you, imagine you get access to a little self-contained, air-conditioned lobby, There's no people in the lobby. There's no artwork. It's very Spartan, but it's free from the 114 Fahrenheit hellscape you've been wandering through for, let's say, millennia. Just for fun. Let's say you've been wandering through that for a long time. You'd be pretty happy, right?
Yeah.
Those negative numbers are gone. Now you're at 0. How long are you going to stay there? Ask yourself that. At some point, alone, with nothing to do, you'll actually go outside. You'll actually leave in search of something that cannot be found in that room, right? Now, what if that lobby was just the lobby to an apartment building full of people? There's a party going on, right? We want to get past just the idea of annihilating suffering. We have to actually embrace that we have desires, and this is fundamental to us. We're meant for relationship, we're meant for exchange, and really try to find that place where that's perfected, not just give up on it altogether. And we can't do it on our own. We cannot figure out our own happiness. This is the very uncomfortable truth, the very ego-challenging truth of our existence. We're actually really bad at finding and keeping what makes us truly happy, you know? And if we actually are able to get past the pride that kicks up in relationship to that, when we hear, oh, we can't make ourselves happy, we don't know what makes ourselves happy, then we can actually receive higher wisdom. You know, we've created an absurd culture around us right now where we have a variety of absurd ways to try to make ourselves happy, and they're based on the very flickering desires of the mind. Well, maybe this will do it, maybe that'll do it. Like a child runs from one thing to another practically instant from instant, and none of them work. And so these are the kinds of results you get from unrestricted, like letting the uncontrolled mind run the show, right? Letting it drive the car. You got to take those hands off the wheel, and you actually have to receive higher wisdom in some way or another. Just like, you know, when you're a child, you have to actually receive wisdom from your parents that, yeah, you know, you just got a big bag full of candy going out and trick-or-treating. If you eat it all at once, you're going to be miserable. So I'm forbidding you. And so there's this way in which we have to be the adult in the room. You know, even if there's a part of us, and there's always going to be in our conditioned state, a part of us that wants to just be uncontrolled, that thinks that that's happiness. There has to be an adult in the room to be like, nah, we're not going to drive off into a ditch like that. And we're not going to make up our own ways of trying to be happy. At least we're going to introduce we're going to run the experiment. We're going to try the processes that are coming down that we didn't come up with. Nobody ever sat around and thought, you know what would be really cool? Let's try this for happiness. What if we sat around and chanted God's names? And what if they're these names? This Maha Mantra isn't invented. It's there in the oldest Shastras in the Vedic tradition, and nobody came up with the process. It's just coming down. Just like a parent gives the good ideas. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to have one piece of candy tonight. You can have another one tomorrow after your dinner, and that'll be your dessert for the next, 2 months. And the kid's like, I hate you so much. This is the worst thing I've ever heard. And 2 months later, they're like, yeah, that was great. The best 2 months of my life. And so you have to receive that wisdom. You have to receive somebody with some perspective. And if we're engaged in our material life, we're like neck deep in it, that's okay. You don't have to like revolutionize it, but at least side by side, run the experiment. Well, what is it like to sit down and chant these mantras? What happens if I try to do that? And you'll realize, oh, this is fundamentally different. This is categorically different than all the other stuff I've been trying out. I tried what Billboard said. I tried what my graduating class in high school said. I tried what the college said. I tried what my spouse said, and my kids said, and my mind said, and my lust, and my anger, and my greed. And I tried all those things. And maybe I'm still trying them. But I'm also trying this. And this is just better. And that's the whole process. This verse that Prabhupada, he quotes in Sanskrit at the end there, part of it. He doesn't give a translation. Sarva dharman parityaja, mam ekam sharanam vraja. That's Bhagavad Gita 1866. Aham tvang sarva papibhyo moksha shami mashrajaha. And he quotes the first half of the verse, which Krishna is saying, literally, just give up all your other ideas. Give up your plan making and just go with my plan. Go with what I'm offering. And the second half of the verse, he says, I'll literally take care of everything. I will take care of all of your problems, I promise. And this is basically every single translation of Bhagavad Gita, every analysis of Bhagavad Gita concludes, this is like Krishna is coming to the final point. That's his best and greatest offer. It's the conclusion from all the different kinds of wisdom he's offered in the 18 chapters so far. It comes to the very end of Bhagavad Gita. And it's him talking to Arjuna personally and not just giving ideas. He's saying, you know what? In other words, if you're confused, if you don't know what to do, just trust me. You've always trusted me. I'm your friend, right? Arjuna and Krishna are friends. That's the context. It's like, if you can't even figure it out, trust me on this. Do this, you'll be happy. I will take care of you. And that's the offer. It's a standing offer. It's on the table for anybody. And Jiva Goswami says this offer that Krishna is making, just go with my idea. I'll take care of you. This is the thing that devotees lean on the most. This is the place where they place their confidence. Like, even if I can't figure it out right now, if I just take Krishna's plan, somehow or other it'll work out. If I just do that and don't go with my own concocted ideas, then that'll work out. And that's the basic promise that the devotees lean on. What that plan is, how to execute it, that's, it'll take more than one verse to point that out. Like how to actually live your life in a way that is as much as possible in sattva, not rajas and tamas, in goodness, not passion and ignorance. How to actually have a progressively increasing, qualitatively and quantitatively increasing spiritual practice that ends up winning your whole heart over. You can give your whole self to. That's, that all has some variety depending on the person, time, place, circumstance, culture, age. But the basic idea is that, I'm never going to come up with it myself. And so we have this same basic message that this verse is giving over and over again in different places in Bhagavatam, that our little plan-making factories, you gotta turn off those conveyor belts, turn off the plan-making factory, and try to some extent take Krishna's plan. Because the default is we're actually running really hard. There's a giant hamster wheel all the time. People got all these crazy plan-making factories. Right now it's like, oh yeah, what if we use all our fresh water and all of our energy on AI? What if we did that? That'll solve all our problems. What if we just offload all of our thinking to some machine, which is like a large language model? What about that? Yeah, that'll work. And next year it'll be something else. And these plan-making factories, in second canto, same idea is there. Deha patra kalatradishu atma senusha satsapi teshan parmatanidram pashan napina pashati. It says that over and over again, people assign confidence to the fallible soldiers of their family and their culture and their body. And just like you hire a security guard, right? What happens if your security guard is sleeping? Like, it's not very good. Better fire them. So these are fallible soldiers. We think they can protect us. My family, all my money, this idea, that idea. They're fallible. And the verse said, although people again and again see that these fallible soldiers are failing, they don't see. And there's a way in which there's a kind of a mass consensual trance. But let's not talk about this, Prabhupada says that too. He says, this illustrates the nature of material happiness. Everyone knows it, but nonetheless one plans to hear or think something very pleasing. Unless we have a better idea, we have to kind of live in some kind of denial. Otherwise, it's too miserable to imagine. We'll never be happy, ultimately. So this is, I don't say anything, you don't say anything, kind of like confidence game. We're all playing with each other. And Bhagavatam is like, no. Wake up. I'm not going to let you sleep at the wheel. I'm not going to let you off the hook on this, because there is a better way, and here it is. So there's these kind of like jolting verses and jolting purports. When Prabhupada says, there's a song that goes, I made this house for happiness, but now there's a fire and everything's gone. I mean, that's pretty sobering, right? He's trying to wake us up, and he's doing it out of a sense of love, not just because of frustration or, sometimes people are like, I know something you don't know. Let me hold it over you. All of your ideas are going to fail, loser. It's not like this kind of like prideful, egotistic thing. It's like, stop investing there, or at least pull back from it. Divest to some degree and invest over here. You've got this limited resource of attention and your short lifespan and your incredible heart, which is capable of so much. Divest from all those things. Those are losing. Look at the ticker on that, right? Look at the stock market results. You're just losing so badly, and invest over here. And in order to do that, sometimes we have to have a little bit of a jolt. This is why verses like this exist, because if we don't have a jolt, generally we tend to exist under our default setting. We just like, yeah, I'm good. I like this ditch. I like driving here. This is fun. Now the water's up to my neck, no problem. It's just very comfortable, right? And so there's a jolt of like, wait a minute. Oh yeah, let me shift a little bit at least over here and try it out. Sometimes the jolt is harder and we're like, oh, I'll give it up entirely. I'm done with it. And that usually doesn't last, but at least we have to have some motivation to be like, let me try this other thing. And once you do that, that's the real shifting. That's the real thing that creates change. It's not the jolts. The jolts don't create lasting change. They create the impetus for change. They create the idea that we should try change, that there could be another way. But ultimately, there has to be something better than and there is something better than the hot hellscape and the bland, impersonal nirvana of an air-conditioned lobby. There's actual relationship available. Krishna's offering, like, take my plant, I'll take care of you. That's a personal message. That's Krishna talking to us one-on-one. I'll take care of you. What is it like to be taken care of by Krishna, right? What is it like to feel cared for by Krishna? What is it like to exchange with him? That is completely answerable at the higher levels of bhakti. And the descriptions of it are given, even in Bhagavatam, what the devotees are feeling. Prahlad was able to say this and mean it because he felt always in his very, very young life so loved by Krishna. Why would he bother with those other things? That's his positive standing. That's what allows him to let go of the otherwise, honestly, very tempting path of his father. His father was the most successful materialist. Why would you ever disobey your own father, who's so good at what they're doing, unless you're sure there's a better way? He was sure because he was tasting it. And we can be sure too. Otherwise, we'll go with the flow and go with these AI ideas and billboard on nonsense and whatever, 2030, whatever kind of crazy ideas they have then, we'll just go with that flow too. So, Hare Krishna. This is our morning jolt away from the rut that our minds would have us live in, and just a reminder that Krishna's offering. Yeah, just take up the lifestyle I'm offering to some degree and see how it feels, see how it works for you, and let go of the sting to your pride that comes when you realize, oh yeah, this is great, and I didn't come up with it myself. That's okay. That's all right. Hare Krishna. Now we'll take any reflections.
I just want to reflect back the thought of I really appreciated these visualizations, and it also makes me think about, a frog that gets put into boiling water. It'll jump out if it's boiling, but if it's already in the water and then the heat turns up,
gradually,
you don't know that you're dying, or the frog's dying. And I think that this idea around happiness in the material world, and I think as you said, embracing these desires that we have, but embracing them through Krishna. Krishna has desires for us too, and it's that's the thing of I'm trying to have that connection with him to see what he desires for me, because I don't always see it.
Yeah.
So it's spending that time connecting that relationship, I think, makes it more clear to me. The more time I spend in japa, the more time I spend in darshan and community, it becomes clearer, those things, while also still living in this material world.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Generally, we're not qualified. It takes a long time, a great deal of practice to come to the point of being qualified to just chant and just your Bhagavatam for your whole, your literal whole life, your whole day. You can do it for short stretches of time if you have really good association. I've done it because I had the association of persons with terrific taste for a month here and there when I was a monk, and there are programs still going on, but for your whole life, not possible until you come to mature taste. And in order for that to happen, you have to have some service to fill up the rest of your time. And in order for that to be fulfilling and to not have it be like a process of having your mind dragged, kicking and screaming, you have to have something that works with your nature, that also fulfills Krishna's desires. So what happens in my experience, and what I've noticed, not just personally, but in devotees' lives, is that they take up the direct practices of bhakti. They chant, they read, they associate, they offer their food. They do that intensively, meaning they have a strong core in their life, and they're doing whatever the rest of their time. They do that for a year or two, intensively, and progressively, as long as they're operating under guidance too, with gurus and senior devotees, they'll start to realize and have it demonstrated to them how they can actually engage day to day, hour to hour, outside of that time, with their hand in the japa bag or like in a kirtan or reading Bhagavatam, because you can't. We can't like read for hours and hours on end. We don't have that taste yet. That comes at the very mature stage. So we have like a strong core, but how do I actually be Krishna conscious for the other 22 hours of the day? And the answer to that in large part comes because of the wisdom ascertained by taking up that core practice. And that's a wonderful experience. I mean, I didn't know that I was so enjoy teaching and reading and studying Bhagavatam, and now it's like a no-brainer. But that became evident from practicing chanting Hare Krishna and then the guidance that came. And so things like that are like, they're part of Krishna's plan for us. And it's a beautiful thing, because then you're like, not just in your japa or just in your, tea and tilak or your kirtan with the devotees, and you're actually still feeling that connection with Krishna. And the relationship expands.
I really appreciate when you spoke about what is it like to feel cared for by Krishna, and that's actually an answerable question. The higher in higher levels of bhakti, and we can understand and feel his personal care, and even as Caitlin was sharing around basically refining one's desires, refining our desires, and getting clarity on what Krishna's desire is for us, and then being an instrument for that rather than just I know my desires, right? And following those material, the blazing fire, which seems more attractive to the material eye usually, right? And how you said we're meant for relationship, we're made for that, and we're made for connection, and how in japa, and our japa affirmation today was talking about how when we're chanting, like Krishna's descending as a deity, to each individually to us, and that if we're chanting in community, it's like he's coming to each of us, like in the rasa dance. And so I was thinking that of like, that's a great example of Krishna showing how he's taking care of us, right? If I could just think of that when chanting japa, like Krishna's coming to take care of me. He gave me this holy name so that he could come and take care of me.
Yeah.
Right? When we also, I know I very deeply want to feel loved, to love and be loved, and my Gurudev says that all the time of like, that's the purpose of life, is to love and be loved. So like that's a way that Krishna's trying to descend to love us. And sometimes I'm not reciprocating that love or missing that, and so I really appreciated how you put that and framed that out for us. Thank you.
Yeah, that reminds me of a song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur where Lord Chaitanya is saying, Inechao Shodimaya Nashibado Lagi. I have descended just to annihilate this disease of your illusion, in the form of the holy name. And I've done this as your friend. I've done this because I care about you, right? It is very personal. Like right around that same point in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna offers, just give up all your other ideas, take my idea. He says, I think like 2 verses before that, now I'll give you my supreme wisdom, which is that offer. And he says, I'll give it to you because you're very dear to me. You're very dear to me, Arjuna. That's the context. He's saying like, listen, bro, I need you to understand. I love you so much. Please, I've got the best advice I can give you. Just hear me out. Give up your own ideas, take mine. That's the context, is that he loves us, not just Arjuna. Mahaprabhu is offering that. He's actually very, very gratefully, Krishna's very gratefully, one-on-one offering this. So I heard that in your reflection.
Yeah, thank you.
More reflections? Looks like Eileen.
Thank you so much for class. I kept on thinking that how do I really demonstrate that love that I'm gaining? The more I chant, the more I'm finding that my relationships outside of sitting in front of the deities is getting better and better, so that I find that demonstrating my love for Krishna in my interactions with everybody, neighbors, my community, teachers, whatever it is I think works without faith is dead. So it's sort of like, if I'm demonstrating this love to others, that eventually it's like, well, there's something different with you, Nancy. What are you doing? Oh, I'm studying the Bhagavad Gita. I'm chanting. And you sort of end up changing people's view a little bit, and maybe getting them to be more interested in seeking the divine. When I think about what God's will for me is, if I have a path in the road, I'm always thinking of, God's will for me is to love you. And so if I can take the path of love, then I think that I'm doing Krishna's will. And I love your analogy of just coming into that atrium thinking, okay, this is going to be perfect. It's cool. I'm all alone. It's great. And I've never been satisfied with fulfilling my material desires and thinking that I've arrived, because almost always it gets, as Raghu says, so what? Now what? Right? So thank you so much for today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, your idea is supported by the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 11th canto, forget which of the munis says it, but the symptoms are given of the not the most advanced devotee, the middle level devotee, the Madhyama Adhikari. At the lower level, the devotee really just recognizes that God is there, and they're trying to invest in their relationship with the Lord. But the middle level, it says, Ishurete latineshu bali sheshu dusatsucha prema maitriku popeksha yakaroti samadhyamaha. That the devotee, at that level, they're progressing, and that means that they start to understand variety. They start to understand that there are, as you said, there are ways that are very pleasing to the Lord that I deal with other people. How do I deal with devotees? How do I deal with those who are not practicing, but they have a good heart? How do I deal with those who are like very averse to what I'm doing? There's different ways. And how do I deal with the Lord? And there's all those different categories, and therefore one's service and one's ability to act as a devotee expands beyond like your time in front of the devotee or in front of the deity, or your time with the japa or the Mahamantra or whatever, your time on Sunday, or or if you're Friday, if you're Muslim, your holy day. It's like, no, it expands, and all of a sudden, like, everybody you're dealing with is like a manifestation of your relationship with the divine, and that's a function of one's bhakti expanding. At the very lower levels, like you can see people who are quite fanatical, they believe in God. They don't have no idea how to deal with other people, but they believe in God, and so one has to grow up out of that, and that the ways to do that are given in that verse in the purport, and basically our whole bhakti culture, because that's what you're experiencing is the increasing realization that that's available, and how wonderful that is, and that's very much what Krishna wants from us. And otherwise, sometimes people come to, not sometimes, often what happens is when people are starting to chant, they're like really fixated on, oh my God, I actually feel good, because they actually haven't. They don't feel like that the rest of their life. They feel really good when they're chanting, and that's fine. It's not bad to feel good. But what can happen is one can get fixed on that and think like the whole point of this process is to feel good and to stop feeling bad. And that's that air-conditioned lobby. And it's like, at some point, Krishna is like, well, hold on, I've been giving you all this joy and pleasure and bliss. And how about you show up in these different ways now? How about you start addressing how your hypocrisy or your anger or your pride, or, you mend your relationships or act differently outside of your practice, which is giving you so much joy. And that's really when one's practice becomes, I think, very mature. As those messages start to come, we start to take them, then the relationship thickens, because those are coming from Krishna, actually. They're not coming from us. They are very pleasing to him. Thank you.
I'm reminded of our from our Tuesday classes. This week we talked about I, me, mine. And, when you look through this, I kind of looked and said, oh, I constructed this home for happiness, or I am making these plans, and so when we rely on ourselves and we kind of think we're the doer and we are the the person that like is creating this happiness, it falls short. And so I think it's an interesting application for what we've been reading in our other class to say, oh, when we realize that like none of this is ours, we're not doing this by our own, our own construct, like all of this is being done by the divine. If it was never ours in the first place, like to lose it, yeah, you could be like, you're going to go through the range of emotions, but it was never mine to begin with. And so, if you constructed the home for happiness and you think it's yours and you did all of this and it's by your, by your effort, and then everything's gone, if you realize that it was never yours to begin with, then the unhappiness isn't going to be there. Just like your extreme happiness won't be there. It's going to be that more balanced, like, here I am, I'm doing my work, I'm relying on Krishna, I understand he's given me all these things, and it's by his mercy that I'm experiencing any of the pleasure or joy. Then it's not as, I guess, as extreme or polarizing when it doesn't go your way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a shift in your service profile. We find that people who lose something, maybe a limb, maybe a loved one, maybe they get a terminal diagnosis, whatever it is they lose, maybe it's just like your hair. Yeah, there's a temporary moment of renunciation where one realizes that it was never mine to begin with, which is helpful. But what's really helpful is to pair that with recognizing who it does belong to. Otherwise, people are losing things all the time, and it doesn't make them self-realized. It doesn't even necessarily create a lasting sense of renunciation, because that jolt doesn't last, because the momentum of the material world continues. It's churning. The factory is still making its ideas, right? So if we can, what's the word I'm looking for? If we can weaponize our own temporary renunciation to remind ourselves that it's not just that it's not mine, it was never mine, but that it actually belongs to Krishna, then we can be motivated to ask him, well, what would you like? What do you want me to do with this house? What should I do with this body? You've given me. I've been doing so many things for me with this body and this mind and this God-given intelligence. What would you like me to do with that, Krishna? And at least try to apply that, to some degree. And that's when you do that, you start to realize that actually, oh yes, it didn't belong. That's not just that it doesn't belong to me, it does belong to him. And you can have some stewardship over things because you're in service to him. And that's helpful because we have to be engaged. And stewardship is that engagement. 18th chapter Bhagavad Gita points out we are agents. We do have agency. We're one of the 5 causes for a thing happening. But the supreme cause is, of course, in the list is Krishna himself. So it's not that we don't exist. Oh, I'm nothing. It's not like oh, I'm a failure. It's all gone. It's all going away from me now. I was never anything to begin with. I'm just saying this because this is a psychological. It's an event that sometimes people go through, like temporary renunciation. They go to like, oh, I don't matter. Nothing matters, and that happens only because they have a loss, but they don't actually know who the thing belonged to in the first place, right? So, yeah, I, me, mine, and shifting it to like it's actually Krishna's is such a powerful shift. And thank you for noticing. Yeah, you brought that over from our Tuesday readings of Canto 2. Thank you. Leanne's saying in chat, what I realized from this teaching today is that when there's a desire that is around for a long time, it is a desire that Krishna has for me. When I follow it, it puts me more at ease than when I follow something that isn't a desire from Krishna, and it's more challenging. Yeah, there's an art to learning. What's is this thing that's coming up my own concoction, or is it Krishna? And that's where the guidance comes in. And yeah, it's the experience is very different. When you try to satisfy yourself versus when you're receiving some indication, some intuition is coming, some guidance, and you try to satisfy Krishna's desire through that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other reflections?
I can say something.
Yeah, say something.
Okay. I was thinking about a metaphor that I can't remember what context that I used to use it in with clients, but it's like straddling the fence and how uncomfortable it is to straddle a fence, like where you're on one side and then you see the other side, you're like, oh, like that side I think that's might be better over there. So you kind of like try to look, and then you're like putting your arm. It's like that's how a lot of my spiritual life feels, where I'm like feel like I'm straddling a fence, and it's like quite uncomfortable. And I think it might just be my own personal kind of black or white thinking, where I'm like, it either needs to be this or this, but I cannot be doing this straddling. Like this is just so uncomfortable. And then obviously we talk about integration, which has been spoken about this morning, and how do we slowly begin, just like Nancy mentioned and you reflected upon, that she's suddenly feeling that she's bringing her bhakti into just everyday life, everyday walks of life is coming up for her. So like that trust in the process that sometimes feels like that it is dry, but like we still have to chant. Like just because it feels dry doesn't mean that we don't do it. Like we continue to do it even if it doesn't feel good, because the point isn't to feel good. So it's hard, because like that prompt you said about chanting with devotion, I'm like, I'm sorry, does somebody have the ability to just say chant with devotion and they just do it? Like, isn't it like, I don't understand that. Like when things are explained like that, like just chant with devotion. I'm like, how? Like, what do you mean? Is somebody able to be like, oh, I'm not chanting with devotion. Let me just quickly flip on my devotion now. Oh, now I'm chanting with devotion. I'm like, isn't that something that comes down to us?
Ultimately,
through through being dutiful and taking the advice of our Gurudevs and our teachers and our fellow devotees. You know what I mean? So I get triggered by things like that. It's like the love thing. It's like you can't hold a gun to somebody and be like, love me. It doesn't work like that. It's like it has to kind of emerge. And it's not going to come from me being like, Justine, you're not chanting with devotion. Please start doing that now. Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, that's an interesting reflection. So, ultimately, bhakti is descending. So one way to look at it is and reconcile that it's descending, but at the same time, I'm asked to be a participant in this process, and I'm not just like checking my watch, waiting for Krishna to give me the mercy. That what my active participation means is in terms of things like what is under my control, like attention. To some degree, we're not perfect yogis. Actually, controlling the mind and being truly attentive is an incredible task. Yeah. It's very difficult, but to try to do it is within our grasp. Everybody can try to control their mind. Not everybody can control it to the same degree, but to try to do it is an act of devotion, because we're trying to give our attention to the Maha Mantra, and we may not have great feeling for Krishna, but if you want that, that's a feeling. You can want to have great feeling. That's a feeling. That's a yearning, right? You can yearn for something you don't have. What if you took your yearning to the Maha Mantra? What if you took it to your practice and you said, well, I don't have this, but I know it's possible. And I feel the absence of this. I would love this. Please, whenever you feel fit, give this to me. If you chant in that mode, that's actually very, very recommended and is available right now without being gifted. That's the nature of yearning, is that even a neophyte can have it. So in fact, it's quite recommended in our line, because we're given this mode of chanting from Lord Chaitanya, which is in line with the mood of love in Vrindavan, which is love and separation. And love and separation, you love somebody more when they're not available face to face with you. You don't feel like you take them for granted. You miss them. So there's a sense of missing. There's a sense of like I want and I miss you, and I'm even if it's my fault, there's something lacking on my end. Somehow or other, there's some yearning. And if we can tap into that, with the humility required to recognize, like you're saying, I don't have that love. I can't just turn it on because I don't have it right now. But you have the capacity for it. That's for sure. And so there are practical ways to kind of engineer that and turn it into your practice and have it be part of your practice, instead of just like, okay, I did my chanting, it's done. Hopefully one of these days, I'll chant with some feeling. It's like, when you're chanting, bring your yearning into it, and of course bringing the attention, because when Mahatma Prabhu was talking about like chanting with devotion, the practical application of that for someone who doesn't have like a burning fire of love for Krishna is like, well, yeah, turn off your phone, sit down and chant and make it about the chanting. That's within our power, right? Like I know I chant more or less distracted, more or less attentive, and I can tell you the results are just different. And I still need, after so many years of practice, to be reminded, like, yeah, Prabhu, you're cheating yourself. Don't cheat yourself. So I think how the application is for you, what's happening for you, what's on your plate. And if you're working under guidance, then people can help you, devotees can help you see, like, what does this mean for me, short of like magically pressing the on switch to your devotion. There are things, there are ways we can engineer our life. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Shami Press, I asked this question, a very similar question actually, to my guru, and she said two things. She said to me, one, she says, you can pray to Krishna to help you chant better. Like before you start your rounds, you can pray. Like I know, Krishna is not the cosmic piggy bank, right? Like we keep taking and asking for things, but by praying to chant better, we're going to be doing something that pleases him. So, help me chant better to please you is not, necessarily for our gain. And then the second thing she said to me was, say a little prayer before each round. I know we kind of, say the names of our teachers before, but, she's like, say a little prayer before each round. And sometimes that can take your focus off of the monotony or, you're kind of mindlessly chanting, that'll help, fixate your mind. So there are, we're all going, at least I know I'm going through that all the time. And so, to really understand that, like, we have to, change what we're doing to have a better effect. And whether it's crying out to God to help us chant better, or it's to, say a little prayer before each round to make it more meaningful. I think there's different things that we can do to help us, as we try to get better at it.
Definitely. I received an instruction too, and I forgot about it in response to your question or reflection until you offer that again. So thank you. It's very authorized. All of our acharyas do it. The mind is such a little rascal that it very easily gets to a place of like taking something for granted and being lost in just kind of the monotony and the flow and not actually investing oneself truly at the heart level. And so we want to do things to trip it up and to keep ourselves attentive. For a while I was offering prayers, like a certain set of prayers before japa, and then I found that it was just becoming like a rote thing. So then I did the same prayers in English. It tripped me up because I had to think about it and invest in it. And then I changed the order around, and then I stopped entirely and I just felt whatever I felt and offered it without words. And we want to do whatever it takes to have the little rascal mind not kind of run the show and be on autopilot. And also, yeah, this process of praying is so much there. In fact, Srila Prabhupada recommended we chant the Panchatattva mantra before we chant japa of the Hare Krishna mantra, because we're taking shelter. We're actually we are just receiving whatever ability to chant we have from Lord Chaitanya and his associates, and they're extremely generous. So going to them is a highly authorized process. Going to their devotees is a very authorized process, whether it's your gurus or your all-time favorite devotees. Sometimes I'll feel inspired to think of Rupa Goswami or Bhaktivinoda Thakur or this deity that I have a relationship with, or this Prahlad Maharaj. Sometimes I think about Prahlad and I feel inspired, like, Prahlad, please help me. You're an all-time devotee. You're sharing these prayers. Help me chant with more attention. And so take your shelter where you can find it. We want to surround ourselves with all these persons and gurus and place their lotus feet on our head. And it's by their mercy that we can chant and develop devotion. It's not by ourselves. And that's also extremely pleasing to Krishna, as Eileen pointed out. That is very much service, is asking for help and doing it under the devotees. I need your help. You please help me. You can give me bhakti. I can't give myself bhakti. You help me to chant with attention.
Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna.
And
It's a
so
process.
What I heard there in all of your share and Justine's question, your response, Eileen's contribution was last night we talked about softening your heart in T&T Lock, and so I was thinking devotion that Muhammad also was talking about doesn't necessarily have to mean pure, unalloyed devotion when you're chanting, because we don't have that, right? But that when I soften my heart, I can access
Yeah.
the small amount of devotion that I do have, and that can come through honesty, right? Of like just saying, please, Krishna, I know it's available. I know it's possible to have that devotion. Help me to feel that, like prayer, which is
Yeah.
what you're saying. You just didn't use those words, right? And our heads can't figure it out, but by softening our hearts, what are the tools and practices I can do to soften before I start chanting?
Exactly. That's a really good metric. So get used to that feeling of your heart softening, and also recognize what happens when you're hardening.
Yeah.
And that's a metric to understand how good your japa is, or how good your service is, or how pleasing it is to Krishna, and how satisfying it's going to be for you. And whatever we do, prayer, presence, meditation, our gayatries, stillness, breath control, all that is in service to try to create a situation where we can access our ability to chant with love and attention, which we do have right now. Even if we don't have prema, we do have that ability to be heart-centered. And so I look forward to hearing more from you in the future about how Krishna's helped you see different ways that you can tap into that.
No pressure.
Haribol.
Jai. Now let's take this opportunity. Well, first, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Now let's take this opportunity to offer our respectful obeisances unto all of the Vaishnava devotees who are just like desire trees. They can fulfill all the desires of everyone, and they're full of compassion for all the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Vansha Kalpatarukyascha Kripa Santu Bhyevacha Paditanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Thanks, everyone. It's been a blast.